One thing that I haven't talked a lot about with the entire virtual class is how proofs are scored on the Regents exam. And I think that's an important thing because if you see a proof, it's it's this big thing. It's maybe this long, and you get 4 points for doing all this work, and that's hard to do. And sometimes you just say, well, I can't get a perfect score. And that's fine. One of the things you can do, though, is you can figure out how to get 1 point or how to get that second point or that third and fourth point on top of that. And you can kind of build your way up that ladder. So what I want to do right here is I want to make a series of videos where I'm looking at a proof and we're kind of thinking about how to go from knowing nothing about a proof to being able to put a full proof together. And we'll kind of do that by a point system. All right, so right now we've got this figure here, and we've got some given statements, and we've got something that we need to prove. And so the idea is, how do we get started with a proof like this? And so here's where we can get started, at least. Okay. So when you've been looking at your IXLs, what's always at the top of the proof? What are the first couple things that are always there? What's the reason? What are the statements that are there, and what's the reason for them? Well, the statements that are at the top are our given statements. Those are the things that we know are true because the proof is telling us that they're true. So AB is congruent to CD. And the reason for that is we say that that's given. 2, AB, do you remember what that symbol means? It means it's parallel to CD. So those two line segments, if they were stretched out forever, they're going in the same direction. All right. What's another thing we know for certain about this proof? What are going to be the last lines of the proof? Well, the last line of the proof is going to be the thing that they want us to prove. That's the destination of our journey. Once we reach that, there's no need to go further and prove more things about this diagram. So I don't know what the number is going to be down there. And I don't necessarily know what the reason is going to be either, but I know this is at the bottom. Okay? Now, how can we fill in the middle? All we need to do now is fill in the middle. All we need to do. That sounds like a lot. Let's do this. And this is something that when I see students confused and they're just looking at this blank sheet of paper, you should do something to a sheet of paper to give it some sort of notion of moving forward. And let me do this. I'm going to use my highlighter. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to highlight all of the pieces that I know about, all the pieces that they're talking about in this proof. So they're talking about sides AB and CD. And they're talking about AD and BC, the diagonals of this polygon. So when I fill in those sides like that, does that give you some sense of some geometric figures that we might want to be talking about in the course of this proof? Well, there's this triangle at the bottom, there's this triangle at the top. Does it seem likely to you, looking at this diagram, that those two triangles are going to be congruent to each other? Yeah, I think so too. So let's put somewhere in the middle of our proof, again, I don't know what number it's going to be, that triangle ABE is congruent to triangle DCE. And there's got to be some reason for this, but again, I don't know what that is. But this is something that I hope you've noticed about almost all of the proofs that we've done, all of the proofs that you've seen on IXL and all of the proofs that you've seen me do. With one or two exceptions, we need to prove that two triangles are congruent to each other. That's just an enormous help to us. So at this point, it looks like I've only got the skeleton to the proof. I'm missing some statements up here. I don't know what they would be. I'm missing some statements down here. I don't know what they would be. Even for the two statements at the bottom, I don't have reasons yet. But here's an exciting thing. This is an amount of work that's already gotten us from having no points for this response to having 1 point. Even if I know nothing else about any other reasons, I've got here at least the framework. I've got that extra line talking about that triangle congruence that I know is going to be a part of a successful proof, or at least I have a strong suspicion that it will be. And that gets me 1 point on the exam. So looking at a thing, just using your highlighter or your pencil to kind of shade in all of the parts of the figure. If there are angles that they're talking about, highlight those angles. If there are sides they're talking about, highlight those sides. And then focus in on that section of the diagram. Can you see triangles that are congruent with each other? If so, that's probably a line that's going to be in your proof. And that gets you a point on the Regents exam, just doing that much work. What I'm going to do in the next video is we're going to work from here. I'm going to say, okay, we've got this much. Where can we move from here?